forward to this one. This is the Cardboard Cutout Java Script. I cannot say enough good stuff about this one. The Cardboard Cutout JavaScript is the backbone for how I draw basically every single page. Over the last several years, it's probably saved me weeks, maybe even months worth of time. In the how-to book, The DC Comics Guide to Digitally Drawing Comics, I describe how to make cardboard cutouts, so I won't go into all of that here. However, this Digi-Art quick tool JavaScript of creating cardboard cutouts is a shortcut to do that. The goal here is when creating a cardboard cutout is so that when you have a background like I've drawn here of any sort of background, but here it's a forest scene and I've drawn an elf princess of some kind who is on a layer by herself here. She looks transparent, you can see right through her and into the background. One option would have been to just draw the background around where she's at, but then if there was any need to reduce her size or rotation or something like that, then you would have these blank spots. So I will oftentimes, and I also teach this in the how-to book, to draw your backgrounds all the way through the entire scene. You can also use those backgrounds as stat panels later on. Here we have her on a layer by herself, and then the background on a layer by itself. The first thing that you'll need to do to utilize this Digi-Art quick tool is to make sure that the lines around the figure, the outermost lines, are all connecting. I have found a break in the line that I drew. What we're wanting to do is select everything that is not the foreground element. That'll make sense in a second. If you have broken lines, though, you won't be able to do this. Make sure your magic wand settings at the top does not have sample all layers checked, so you want to click that off. Next, using the magic wand tool, select everything that is not the foreground character. Add to this selection, like here, we'd be able to see through her hair. Just hold down Shift and click. And another one here. And another one here. Now we have our selection ready, and the next step is to activate the quick tool. So go to File, Scripts, Digi-Art Quick Tool, Cardboard Cutout. The next thing we see is a pop-up menu that is asking how thick we would like the contour line around this cardboard cutout. In this case, let's say 4 pixels. You'll just have to play with this and get a handle on how thick you like your contour lines. The elements that are in the foreground, usually a little thicker, background, usually thin or non-existent sometimes. So here we have the option if we want to add this to its own layer group, which I usually use just because it keeps everything pretty well organized, and we'll see why in just a second. The JavaScript looks at the name of the layer in the layers palette and automatically adds that into the field for the name of the layer group. If you'd like to change it, you can. I'm going to here, I'm just going to make it Elf Rogue. If not, you can keep it the same. It's a time saver. Then you hit OK. And as you see, the JavaScript did a crazy dance. The JavaScript created a knockout layer that's a solid color fill layer. You can change the color on the fly. And this is something that's good if you are doing your own colors. You can actually use this as a base for your color flats. But again, that's something for another tutorial. So it creates a knockout layer at the base of the layer group. Next we have the line art that we already drew. And then on the top it has a contour line. Now if we turn on the background, in this case trees, and I'm also going to turn off the under sketches from previous. Now we have a cardboard cutout of the Elf Rogue. So no matter where we move her on the screen, or rather in the panel or the pinup, whatever you're working on, she's knocking out the elements that are behind her. So if you had other figures, you can layer them in the same panel. As we see, the Digi-Art Quick Tool Cardboard Cutout does a good job of making a nice smooth line around the outside of the foreground element, or the figure in this case. The area that it has a little bit of a limitation in is in the wireframe drawing we have a point, or as we see here, the line basically tapers off into nothing. The contour line that the Cardboard Cutout JavaScript created looks a little more rounded. So the way to fix this, first of all, the size that we're usually drawing these at when we're working digitally is the same size as a piece of original art board. So it's 11.5 by 17 approximately. And these are pretty high resolution files. So a lot of this rounding of the contour line would actually, if you left it, would still look pretty decent. It would disappear a lot whenever the artwork is reduced so small before it gets printed into the comic book. If you're concerned about it, it'll just take a second to basically zoom in, and on the contour line layer, just use your eraser tool and touch up some of the lines so that they get a little bit sharper. I will often not take this step. I probably do it only about 30% of the time, It just depends on how close the element is to the foreground and how important that small tapering line is to the piece. It just takes a couple of seconds. I'm pointing this out because it's about the only limitation that the Digi-Art Quick Tool Cardboard Cutout JavaScript has. This is the only place where if you were to draw the contour line by hand, it might be a little bit more precise, but the rest of it is much faster and just as exact as if you were to draw it by hand. So what if your figure does not go to the edge of the Photoshop document you're working in? Well, we've thought of that as well. So if I use the Magic Wand tool, as you can see, the selection goes into her line work, and that's not what we want. A way to solve this, or a workaround to still use the Digi-Art Quick Tool Cardboard Cutout JavaScript, is to create a duplicate of the layer that has the line art drawn on it. And as you see, it has the word copy in it. This is just going to be a temporary layer that we're using just to complete off the selection. So here I'm just going to draw a straight line across the bottom of her torso, or of her bust. Now whenever I proceed as normal and select the background, as you see, the selection will stop at that bottom line instead of going up into the rest of her line work. Now that I have everything selected, I can proceed as normal. So File, Scripts, Digi-Art Quick Tool Cardboard Cutout. Now we get the pop-up screen the same. Let's say a 4-pixel contour width around the element. I want to add it to a new group. Even though in the past the JavaScript got the name of the new layer group from the layer, in designing the JavaScript we've told it to ignore any temporary layers that basically have the word copy in it. So here it sees the word copy and it knows that that's a temporary layer and is going to ignore that and just look at the layer underneath it to get its name. It will also be deleting this copy layer whenever we run it through the rest of the JavaScript, so just be mindful of that. This is strictly a temporary layer. We hit OK. It deletes that temporary layer, and now we have the full cardboard cutout. The contour line, as you see, does have the line at the bottom, but the temporary layer where we drew the line across has been deleted and it has not affected this line art. The reason that we created the line across the bottom was just to finish off the selection. Now we see that we have a full cardboard cutout like normal. If you would like to, you could still erase the bottom of this contour line. However, I usually don't bother with that because, as we see, if you turn on the border to your template or your borders up to 100%, then it knocks all that out anyway. This concludes the tutorial for the Digi-Art Quick Tool Cardboard Cutouts. Please take a look at my website, freddyart.com, for additional tutorials and Digi-Art Quick Tool downloads.